Okay, let's jump right into this. Today we're taking a deep dive into proactive crisis management. Our source is a piece called Sense, Correct, Succeed. Proactive crisis management starts early. Hmm. And it's interesting, it's linked to a collection of thoughts, life experiences. We'll circle back to that context later on.
Yeah.
But the main idea here, it's quite powerful, actually. It argues that real crisis management isn't about reacting to the big blow-up. It's about sensing potential failure way in advance.
Right.
Because that advance warning, that's what gives you the time you need for, well, course correction, as the source puts it.
Exactly. It shifts the whole timeline.
So the management part starts before the crisis even feels like a crisis. It's more prevention than cure, almost.
That's a good way to put it.
So why is that early sensing so critical? I mean, what does it really enable? And what exactly do they mean by course correction? It sounds kind of crucial.
Well, yeah, it's absolutely crucial. Sensing failure early, it unlocks the most valuable thing you have in any complex situation.
Right.
Time and flexibility. When you catch something early, maybe it's just a little dip in a number or some weird feedback or even just a gut feeling that a project isn't quite right.
Those subtle things.
Yeah, exactly. You've got breathing room. You can actually look into it properly, talk to people, maybe test a small change without, betting the farm. Think about the opposite. A full-blown crisis hits. Suddenly it's all high pressure. You barely know what's going on. Your options shrink dramatically. And making a mistake, oof, the cost just skyrockets.
Right.
Early sensing pulls you out of that reactive panic mode and into a more considered proactive state.
Okay. That makes a huge difference. It's not just spotting the problem, it's having the actual space to deal with it effectively.
Yeah.
So course correction in that early phase, what does that look like? It sounds like it's more involved than just a quick patch-up job.
Oh, definitely. It's not about putting a Band-Aid on when the patient is already hemorrhaging. Course correction here means making deliberate, often quite subtle adjustments based on those early signals you picked up.
Like?
Well, think about it practically. It might mean tweaking a process because early tests showed some friction points, or pivoting a feature in your product based on beta feedback before the big launch. It could even be adjusting team roles if you sense some misalignment, before it causes real conflict. Or maybe having that difficult conversation in a relationship when you first notice things feel off, not waiting until you're practically strangers.
Instead of waiting for the explosion.
Precisely. It's like steering your car just a tiny bit when you notice you're drifting a few degrees off course, rather than yanking the wheel when you're suddenly heading for the ditch. But it does take discipline, right, to act on those signals, especially when they seem small.
Yeah, that really resonates. It must take some courage to actually acknowledge a potential issue early on, doesn't it? When everything looks okay. It's definitely easier to just ignore a faint signal than to face it and maybe have to change plans or admit something's not quite perfect yet.
Absolutely. And that's a real challenge. First, figuring out if it is a real signal or just noise. And then there's often that internal inertia, resistance to changing direction after you've already put effort in. But the source is clear. The succeed part of sense.
Yeah.
Succeed fundamentally depends on your willingness and ability to do the first two. Success isn't magic. It's the result of sensing early and correcting promptly.
Which brings it back to why this is so important for you listening. Whether you're managing a huge project at work or maybe a personal goal or even just trying to plan your week effectively. Building in ways to sense when things are starting to drift off track and then having the guts to make those small adjustments early, that's nearly always less painful, way less costly, and just works better than waiting for the big mess.
Right.
Avoiding the crisis is the best crisis management.
The core lesson really is about cultivating that foresight. It's not about being psychic. It's about setting up your systems, whether that's formal data tracking, regular team check-ins, or maybe just intentionally paying more attention to your intuition. Setting things up to give you those early warnings and then, crucially, acting on them decisively.
And, it's interesting how this specific idea is framed in the source material. It links this thought, sense, correct, succeed, to something called RupeshDilSe, which translates roughly to Rupesh from the heart.
Okay.
And it's presented as representing the thoughts of Rupesh Jain, drawn directly from his own life experience, covering corporate life, but also broader life lessons.
So it's grounded in real-world experience, not just theory.
Exactly. It's not some abstract concept from a management textbook. It's positioned as a principle that someone learned, perhaps the hard way, through actually navigating life and work. It kind of makes you pause and think, doesn't it, about where the most useful, practical wisdom often comes from.
Yeah, definitely.
So often, it's forged right there in the middle, of actually doing things, sensing things going wrong, making corrections, learning as you go. That lived experience. Well, that's our time for this deep dive. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.